Have you ever looked at a woman who was 20 years younger than you, and before you even spoke to her, you had already rejected yourself? Not because she said no, not because she laughed, but because a quiet voice inside your own head whispered, "Don't embarrass yourself. Men like you don't get women like her anymore." That voice has ended more relationships than age ever has. And if you've ever carried that thought in silence, stay with me. Subscribe if these conversations help you understand yourself a little more deeply, because sometimes one honest insight can change the story you've been telling yourself for years. I want to tell you something that many people are uncomfortable admitting. A relationship with a 20-year age gap doesn't succeed because age doesn't matter. It succeeds when age stops being the most interesting thing about the two people involved. I've spent years listening to men describe the same experience in different words. I feel guilty for wanting someone younger. I'm afraid people will judge us. I keep wondering if she'll wake up one day and realize she made a mistake. Notice something. Almost none of those fears are about the woman. They're about the man's relationship with himself. And that's where psychology quietly changes the conversation. Because relationships rarely collapse under the weight of a number. They collapse under the weight of fear, insecurity, assumptions, and stories that were never questioned. Here's what many people don't see. When two people first meet, attraction isn't a spreadsheet. The brain isn't measuring birthdays every second. It's watching something much more subtle. How safe do I feel around this person? Do they listen? Can I relax? Do I feel seen instead of evaluated? Those questions happen beneath awareness, sometimes in seconds, sometimes over weeks, and they often become stronger than age itself. I've watched couples with only 3 years between them live like strangers. I've also met couples separated by 2 decades who still looked at each other as if they had discovered home. Not because life was easy, not because everyone approved, but because something inside their emotional world fit together in a way that outsiders couldn't measure. Here's where many men become confused. They assume a younger woman is automatically looking for youth, energy, status, excitement. Sometimes she is, sometimes she isn't. Women are not one story, just as men aren't. One woman may be deeply drawn to ambition, another feels safest with emotional steadiness. Another values humor more than appearance. Another notices patience before she notices age. Human beings are wonderfully inconsistent, and that's exactly why predictions based only on age so often fail. I remember speaking with a man who was almost 60. He kept at his neck. "I don't understand why she chose me." He listed every reason she shouldn't have stayed. His wrinkles, his grey hair, his slower pace, his past. He never listed what she actually talked about, the way he listened without interrupting, the calm she felt after difficult days, the feeling that she never had to perform to earn his attention. He couldn't see what she saw, because he was looking in the mirror, while she was looking at the relationship. That difference changes everything. And if you're honest, I wonder which one you've been looking at lately. That question stays with me because it reveals something most people never notice. A man can spend years trying to become attractive while completely overlooking the qualities that quietly keep love alive. There's a strange contradiction I see over and over. Many men believe attraction is won in the beginning. Very few realize it's protected in the ordinary moments that come afterward. Imagine this. It's late in the evening. The excitement of the first months has settled into something quieter. She's talking about a difficult conversation she had with someone at work. She's not looking for a solution. She's watching your face. Without realizing it, she's asking herself questions she would never say out loud. Can I bring my messy emotions here? Will he rush to fix me? Will he make this about himself? Or will he simply stay with me for a while? Those tiny moments rarely make dramatic stories, but psychologically they build emotional safety. And emotional safety is often mistaken for chemistry. The two feel similar because they both calm the nervous system. That surprises many people. We talk endlessly about sparks. Almost nobody talks about peace. Yet peace is often what allows attraction to survive long after excitement changes shape. This is one reason some age gap relationships become unexpectedly resilient. A man who has lived through disappointment, failure, loss, and rebuilding may respond differently than he did at 25. Not because older automatically means wiser, Life doesn't hand out wisdom as a birthday gift. Some people grow older without growing emotionally at all. But when someone has genuinely reflected on his mistakes, learned patience, and become less reactive, he often brings something into the relationship that cannot be bought or imitated. Consistency. That word sounds almost boring until you've lived without it. Think about how exhausting emotional unpredictability can be. One day affection, the next day distance. 1 week full of promises, the next week complete silence. For many people, uncertainty becomes emotionally expensive. So when someone arrives who behaves in a steady, respectful way, the nervous system notices. Not dramatically, quietly. Like finally putting down a heavy bag you didn't realize you were carrying. I've heard younger women describe this feeling in different words. He doesn't make me guess. I know where I stand. I feel calmer around him. Notice what isn't being mentioned. They're not saying his age created those feelings. They're describing his behavior. That's an important distinction. Age doesn't create emotional maturity. Choices do. Reflection does. Accountability does. Learning from painful experiences does. Without those things, 20 extra years become nothing more than 20 extra birthdays. But when those years have been lived with honesty, they can shape a presence that feels surprisingly rare. Now, let me say something that some men need to hear. If you're hoping that being older automatically makes you more desirable, you'll probably be disappointed. Confidence cannot be borrowed from your age. Respect cannot be demanded because you've lived longer. A younger partner doesn't need another parent. She doesn't need someone who constantly reminds her how much he knows. She needs someone who makes her feel emotionally respected. Those are completely different things. Real maturity doesn't announce itself. It shows up in how you handle disagreement, how you apologize, how you stay calm without becoming emotionally distant, how you protect trust instead of winning arguments. Ironically, those quiet qualities often become more attractive over time than the excitement people chase in the beginning. Because excitement may open the door, but emotional security is often what makes someone choose to stay when life becomes complicated. And that's where the real test of any relationship begins, not when everything feels easy, but when both people slowly discover who the other truly is and decide whether that person still feels like home. There's another truth that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes the biggest challenge in a 20-year age gap relationship isn't the couple, it's everyone watching them. Friends make jokes, family members ask questions that sound polite but feel like accusations. Strangers stare just a little too long in restaurants. Social media has an opinion before either of you has even finished your first date. At first, you tell yourself it doesn't matter. Then one comment slips under your skin. What could she possibly see in him? Or, she's probably just going through a phase. The words linger far longer than they should, not because they're true, because they're repeated often enough that you start wondering if they might be. This is how outside pressure quietly becomes inside doubt. Psychology has a name for something similar. When people constantly expect a relationship to fail, the couple can begin acting as though failure is inevitable. Every disagreement suddenly feels larger. Every misunderstanding becomes proof. Every ordinary conflict is interpreted through the lens of age. Imagine a simple argument about weekend plans. In another relationship, it might end with laughter an hour later. But here, one of you quietly wonders, maybe this is happening because of our age difference. The disagreement hasn't changed. The meaning you've attached to it has. And meaning shapes emotion far more than most people realize. I've seen couples spend months trying to solve the wrong problem. They weren't fighting about age, they were fighting about feeling misunderstood. Those are very different battles. One can be measured with numbers, the other can only be healed through conversation. There's a man I remember speaking with who told me something that stayed in my mind. He said, "I spend more energy defending my relationship than actually enjoying it." That sentence broke my heart. Because love should never feel like a courtroom where you're constantly presenting evidence. When you're always trying to prove your relationship is real, you stop fully living inside it. You become hyper-aware. You analyze every glance, every comment, every family dinner, every introduction. Instead of asking, "Are we happy?" you start asking, Do other people believe we're happy? Those are not the same question, and only one of them actually matters. Here's something fascinating about emotionally healthy couples. Over time, they slowly stop performing for the audience. Not because they've become careless, because they've become secure. Security changes behavior in quiet ways. You laugh more naturally. You stop explaining every decision. You don't rush to justify why you're together. You simply live. That kind of confidence isn't loud. It doesn't post long speeches online. It doesn't argue with every critic. It understands a simple truth. People who truly know your relationship rarely need an explanation. People determined to misunderstand it usually won't be convinced by one. There's freedom in accepting that. Not everyone has to approve of your happiness. Not everyone has to understand your connection. Healthy love has never required unanimous applause. But there is one person whose opinion can quietly sabotage everything: your own. Because if deep down you believe your relationship is somehow less valid, less real, or only temporary because of the age gap, you'll begin treating it that way without even realizing it. You'll hesitate to make future plans. You'll hold back emotionally. You'll keep one foot near the exit just in case. And here's the tragedy. Sometimes the relationship doesn't end because of the age difference. It ends because one person spent so much time preparing for rejection that he never fully allowed himself to be loved. That fear of being left. It's quieter than most people imagine. It doesn't always look like jealousy. Sometimes it looks like generosity. You tell yourself, I don't want to hold her back. You encourage her to spend more time without you. You insist that she should experience life with people her own age. On the surface, it sounds selfless, but underneath, another thought is quietly breathing. If she sees enough of the world, she'll eventually realize I'm not enough. Do you see what happened? You never gave her the chance to choose. You made the decision for her long before she ever could. I've watched this unfold more than once. A man begins pulling away not because he loves less, but because he loves so much that losing her feels unbearable. So he tries to soften the future pain by creating distance today. Psychologically, it makes sense. Our minds often believe that if we expect disappointment, it will hurt less when it arrives. But relationships don't work that way. Love cannot grow where one person is constantly rehearsing goodbye. Think about how exhausting that must feel for the other person. She notices that you hesitate before making plans 6 months ahead. She notices that you dismiss compliments instead of accepting them. She notices that every conversation about the future somehow circles back to your age. At first, she reassures you. Then she comforts you. Eventually, she starts wondering why her words never seem to reach you. And that's a painful place to stand. Not because she has stopped caring, because she feels powerless to convince you of something she already believes. This is where many people misunderstand reassurance. Reassurance is like rain. It helps. It nourishes. But if the ground underneath is cracked by years of self-doubt, even the gentlest rain disappears quickly. The real work happens beneath the surface. It's asking yourself a question that most men avoid. If she truly loves me today, why do I keep arguing with her feelings? Read that again in your own mind. Why do you trust your fear more than you trust her choices? That's not confidence. That's anxiety wearing the mask of realism. And anxiety has a remarkable talent. It always sounds reasonable. It says, I'm just being practical. I'm protecting myself. I'm preparing for reality. But sometimes reality isn't speaking, fear is. There's another misunderstanding I'd like to gently challenge. Many men believe they have to become extraordinary to deserve a younger woman's love. More successful, more wealthy, more impressive, more entertaining. Always proving, always earning, always performing. But healthy relationships rarely survive because one person keeps trying to win an invisible competition. They survive because both people eventually feel safe enough to stop competing altogether. The strongest couples I've met share something surprisingly simple. Neither person spends every day asking, how do I keep this person from leaving? Instead, they quietly ask, how do we keep building something worth staying in? Those questions create completely different relationships. One is driven by panic, the other is driven by purpose, and purpose has a calming effect on love. It shifts your attention away from what might happen someday and back toward what you're creating together right now. Because the future isn't protected by worrying about it. It's shaped by the small emotional choices you make today, the conversations you don't avoid, the appreciation you actually express, the trust you decide to practice even when uncertainty whispers in your ear. Age cannot replace those things. Money cannot replace them. Charm cannot replace them. Only two people, showing up honestly day after day, can. And strangely enough, that's where many couples with a large age gap discover a strength they never expected. There's one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about. It isn't romantic, it isn't dramatic, but it quietly decides whether love deepens or slowly fades. It's the ability to let each other keep growing. When people hear 20-year age gap, they often imagine two people living in completely different worlds, different music, different memories, different ways of seeing life. Sometimes that's true. But here's what I've noticed. The happiest couples don't erase those differences. They become curious about them. Curiosity is one of the most underrated forms of love. Imagine a Saturday afternoon. She plays you a song you've never heard before. Your first instinct might be to smile politely and think, "This isn't really my kind of music." But instead you ask, "What do you like about it?" She lights up, not because you suddenly loved the song, because you cared enough to understand her experience. A week later, you tell her a story from your 20s, not to prove how much life you've lived, not to remind her how young she is, just because it's part of who you are. She listens, she asks questions, she laughs at details nobody else remembers. Without realizing it, the two of you are building something much stronger than shared age. You're building shared meaning. That's what lasting relationships are made of, not identical histories, shared emotional experiences. There's something beautiful about watching two people become students of each other's worlds. He introduces patience. She introduces spontaneity. He reminds her that not every problem needs an immediate answer. She reminds him that joy doesn't always need a reason. Neither person is trying to reshape the other. They're expanding each other. That's very different. Control says, "Become more like me." Love says, "Help me understand who you are." Do you know why that matters? Because people rarely leave relationships where they continue to feel emotionally discovered. Human beings long to be seen, not analyzed, not managed, seen. And being seen requires attention, real attention, the kind that's becoming increasingly rare. I sometimes ask couples a simple question. When was the last time you learned something new about each other? At first they smile, then they think. The happiest couples usually answer quickly, "Oh, just last week. I never knew she felt that way. He told me something about his childhood I'd never heard before." Notice what's happening. Years together haven't ended curiosity, they've deepened it. The struggling couples often give a different answer. "I think I already know everything about her," or "We've talked about it all." That belief is dangerous, because the moment you think someone's story is finished, you stop listening for the chapters they're still writing. None of us stay the same. Not at 25, not at 45, not at 65. Life keeps changing us. Loss changes us. Success changes us. Failure changes us. Healing changes us. If you stop paying attention, you don't lose the relationship all at once. You slowly lose touch with the person standing right beside you. That's why emotional intimacy isn't built through grand romantic gestures. It's built through hundreds of ordinary conversations where both people quietly say, without using those exact words, "I'm still interested in meeting the person you're becoming." And perhaps that's one of the greatest strengths an age gap relationship can develop. Neither person expects the other to stay frozen in time. They've already accepted that change is part of love. The question is whether they'll keep choosing to grow together instead of growing apart without noticing it. If you've stayed with me this long, I want to leave you with one thought that I hope lingers after this video ends. Not because it's comforting, because it's true. One day, people will stop talking about your age. One day, your hair will change a little more. Your face will carry more lines than it does today. Her face will change too. Life has a way of making time fair to everyone. And when that day comes, the question will no longer be, was there a 20-year age gap? The question will be, what did the two of you build while you had the chance? That's the part most people forget. No lasting relationship survives because it looked perfect from the outside. It survives because two imperfect people kept choosing each other through ordinary days, through misunderstandings that were repaired instead of ignored, through conversations that felt uncomfortable but honest, through seasons when love felt effortless, and seasons when it had to become a decision before it became a feeling again. That's real intimacy, not constant excitement, not endless certainty, just two people who keep showing up with honesty. I think many men carry a quiet sadness they rarely speak about. They believe they've become invisible, that somewhere along the way life quietly closed the door on deep love. So when someone younger genuinely smiles at them, listens to them, chooses them, they spend more energy questioning it than experiencing it. That breaks my heart. Because the mind has a strange habit. When it believes something good cannot last, it struggles to enjoy it while it's here. It keeps searching for hidden motives, for warning signs, for the moment everything falls apart. Meanwhile, life is happening. The conversation over coffee, the shared laughter during a long drive, the way she reaches for your hand without thinking, the comfortable silence that only exists between people who trust each other. Those moments don't ask for perfection, they ask for presence. And presence is impossible when fear occupies every corner of your attention. So if you remember only one thing from our conversation today, let it be this. A relationship with a 20-year age gap is not automatically stronger, and it is not automatically weaker. It follows the same emotional laws as every healthy relationship. Mutual respect, emotional safety, honest communication, curiosity, trust that is earned, protected, and renewed over time. Age may shape your experiences. It may influence your perspectives. It may create conversations that other couples never have. But it does not decide whether two people are capable of building a meaningful life together. People do, every single day. So don't measure your relationship by the number that separates your birthdays. Measure it by the peace you feel when you're together, by whether both of you can be fully yourselves without pretending, by whether difficult conversations leave you closer instead of farther apart, and by whether, after the excitement fades and ordinary life settles in, you still look at each other and quietly think, "I'm grateful you're here." Because in the end, that's what lasts. Not the opinions of strangers, not the assumptions of people who never knew your story. Just two hearts that kept choosing understanding over fear, one ordinary day at a time. If this conversation made you stop and reflect, tell me in the comments, do you believe love is measured by age or by emotional maturity? I'd genuinely like to hear your perspective. And if you'd like more conversations that explore the psychology behind love, relationships, and personal growth, I'd be glad to have you here again.